How's it going, everybody? Youngman Brown here. Two-parter alert. Today's interview is part one of my conversation with Alex Hofeldt. One of my favorite things about Alex is how into his subject he is. He is the host of my favorite podcast, Beautiful Dust Specks. And before he came on the show, I was pretty sure that this one was going to be longer than just your normal half an hour episode. So these two parts are packed with tons of inspiration as well as scientific facts that are going to blow your mind and just make you really feel like you need to go and get your work done. So just know that this episode will run about 30 minutes and then you get the rest tomorrow. So with that being said, Your Creative Push, episode 76.
I think one of the challenges of life is starting your own little singularities. Like, what singularity are you going to start? What are you going to kick into motion just to see what the hell happens?
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Alex Hofeldt. Alex is the creator and host of Beautiful Dust Specks, a podcast designed to show the world the wonder and motivation in science. And I am a huge science and space nerd and never get to talk about it, so naturally, Beautiful Dust Specks is my favorite podcast at the moment. And Alex, I was wondering if maybe you could fill us in a little bit about, how you got started with the podcast and maybe a little bit about your personal life.
Well, your favorite podcast, huh? That's
yes.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, 100% it is. Yeah.
I got started. I was raised by a science teacher. My parents are both teachers. So looking back, I was raised by a nerd. My dad was a, amazing father. Both my parents are great. And I just always enjoyed science. And then podcasting world, I kind of just fell into it. Like, you're talking about, I'm just really hungry for knowledge. I just like any conduit where I can learn new things. It's the dirty secret about the fun side about being a teacher. I mean, I get to hang out with kids all day and talk about a subject that I adore. So I learned something every single year. And then podcasts kind of fell on top of my lap. We were talking about before the show where I bought a new car and it had the Stitcher radio app. I was like, what's Stitcher? And I fired it up and I think I fell in love with Radiolab, honestly. I think it was, I don't know what I clicked. Couldn't tell you what the first one was. I think it was a Radiolab. And then I was just like, I was blown away. It was the Bad Show where they talked about Fritz Haber and the creation of fertilizer and mustard gas. And I was just like, wow, what a story. And then I found Star Talk with Degrassi because, of course, I clicked on the science tab first and went into that. And I just started, I just ate them up. I think in the 4 years that I've had that car, my Stitcher radio app says I've listened to over 700 hours of stuff, Yeah, isn't that crazy? It just builds up. I really don't listen to music. The kids and people always laugh at me, like, what music are you into? I'm like, the Tim Ferriss show. And I just kind of laugh about it. And then it's such a parallel with teaching that after a while, I just enjoyed the conversation so much and kind of wanting more conversation in my life. Like you're saying, you never get to talk about it. And the thought and the idea of, man, I could add to this conversation. I think I was always joke with my mind. I'm like, I should call Degrassi. Like I could hang with this guy and talk to him for a minute. And I emailed him like 5 times. He never emailed me back. But now it was before he was big. It was when he was before Cosmos. It was when I was like, come on, man, get an educator on here. He kind of talks smack about science education. So I was like, I tried emailing him that angle, but he didn't go for it. And then this year I've been wanting to do it for probably 2, honestly. Well, we'll talk. There was a lot of fear involved. There was a lot of scared and little things happen here and there that pushed me over the edge. And then it's just kind of my world. My world is science. My world is fitness. It's just dynamic living. And then I'm also a yoga instructor. I'm a personal trainer. And my main job, though, like I said, is I'm a high school science teacher. I teach biology and astronomy. And I love bringing science to people. I love it so much. I love learning from people. I love performing it in my mind and just kind of ranting and raving about it. And the older and older I get, just the more and more I dig it. So I just decided to try and throw that out into the ether and see what goes down.
Yeah, well, that's like the fun thing about podcasts, I think. Once you kind of start to listen to one, then you get recommendations for others, and then suddenly you realize that because it's the same thing with me. I don't listen to music anymore, really, because there's always like something in my queue of podcasts to listen to learn and to get more, especially if you don't have people in your life that have the same interests or the same kind of motivations. That's kind of the goal of this podcast too, to motivate people who don't have somebody else to kind of motivate them in their life. But the way you talk in your podcast, and you can tell like the joy that learning brings to you and the joy that science brings to you. So it seems very natural. Like it seems like you're the high school teacher I never had that I always wish I did have because you're so stoked on it. So like, what did take you so long then because it seems so natural once you get into podcasting?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, dude. I fear. I don't know. I mean, the haters, man. Taylor Swift style. Haters gonna hate. I just it's this sounds really. I mean, it's kind of personal, I guess. But I being me and doing what I'm into, I really feared in life. I wasted a lot of my talents when I was a young kid. I just didn't. I had a temper, so I blew up my golf career. I was a college golfer and stuff, and I always kind of liked school. I loved learning. Like I loved the content. I hated. I mean, I loved the concepts. I hated the content. I didn't want to study vocab. I wanted just to talk about science. So I kind of resisted education. So through life now in my older years, when I'm supposed to be kind of winding down, I'm all over the board. I have my friends and family even kind of, they always look at me sometimes, I think like a cartoon character. Like, oh, what are you into today, little guy? And like, oh, yoga, and they mean
Yeah.
well, but at the same time, they're not really. I feel like they're not always taking me seriously. And then you know how it is. Like, dude, like the fact you do a podcast is so amazing. Like, you should be so stoked on what you're doing. You're putting it's terrifying. Like when you
Mm.
first click record on that and send that out, I was freaking out. So
Oh
honestly,
yeah.
for me, it was just the haters. I was really afraid of just doing it. And then also, there's that little side of you when you're doing creative things where if I dreamed about it, you could just dream about it. But if you actually do it and you're not good at it, or like it fails, there was a little bit of me where it was just kind of fun to be like, I could do a podcast, that'd be great. And then I'd be like, oh, but and then finally this last year, I had a really good group of kids, and I always have a good group of kids, and I have this speech thing that I do we can talk about, and it's when if we ever talk about like your most creative moments and stuff like that, that's what really
Mhm.
got me over. And I had a girl. I had a lot of kids, but one girl wrote me this just like amazing thing, and she's just like, you really have to do it, like please do it. And I was just like, ah, all right. And I was like, let's do this, and I just decided. And then then you look into it, and it was a couple months after that because sitting down and I had blocked out moments to research it, and I got really overwhelmed with the RSS feeds and this, that, and this, and I was like, oh my god, like oh my god. So then I resisted that for a minute just from that, and then I just went with it. I went with it. My big thing for me was my friend bought me the microphone. I had a buddy who had been really supportive of me and yoga, and just he really was a good friend of mine. He's like, I will buy you the mic. You're gonna do this. And I was like, okay, okay. And then me spending the $400 on the logo through 99 Designs, really, that was like the mixing with the logo was awesome. I dig the logo, so I was like, all right, we gotta do this. Let's go. And then I just got out of my own way finally. I just decided to, you're gonna be, who knows, it won't be perfect. It's not gonna be crazy. And like if you listen to my show, I don't really edit it too much because with my life, I'm busy. So I felt like it would be better and less stressful to me to just throw it out there, do what I got to do, pretty much click record, click submit, and not stress on the rest, which probably could make it better. If I had more free time, I'm sure I could put more meat on the bone. And but the way I like living life is I like living life in like a soup. I like being into everything. And because when you're a kid, you just get so pigeonholed, you just get so bogged down in like popularity and this music and that music. It's like, dude, it's just freaking music. Like, listen to all music, anything that gets you stoked and gets your foot tapping, go with it. So like, why not be into X, Y, and Z, and use this amazing beautiful dust speck body of 37 trillion cells that I got to walk, talk, and think and feel through this world. So it just gets me going.
That's one of the things about just starting a creative pursuit. When I started the podcast, I just hit record and recorded my first episode. And looking back, it's like, wow, I could have done more work. But at the same time, I wouldn't be at the point I am
Yeah,
now
F it,
if I
right? You
hadn't
just got to
started.
go with
Yeah,
it.
F it. Exactly.
Totally. You just got to throw it out there, and like I said, the haters are gonna hate, and they do. They do. I'm sure you've gotten here and there. And for me, I try and hang on to the science, the philosophy, or the psychology side of the negativity bias of a human. That's just the way we're wired. Like 20 positives, the one negative. That one negative is just gonna eat away at you. So I try and be very mindful of that. And then when it gets really bad, just crank up Taylor Swift, man. I'm telling you, hater, just play that song, jam out in the car, call it a day.
I love it.
Oh yeah, she's my girl.
Could you maybe take us back to your first or one of your first creative moments and tell us that story?
Yeah, that's always a fun thing to think about back and go retrospect back into the past. But I never really thought of myself as a creative person. I was a big freestyle skier, and I always loved golf and stuff. I always kind of liked the beauty of the golf swings and things. So I was thinking about the other day. I'm like, I was kind of creative, I guess, with sports and stuff. But honestly, in terms of creativity, I did art when I was a kid here and there, but I was colorblind, so I never really took it that seriously. And then what really got me going was you were talking earlier about, you said I was the biology teacher you never had, which I kind of hope that's the feeling I give to my kids. And the kids will ask me, why did you get into teaching? Because it's kind of funny, we hate school as kids, right? You just do. It's just what you do as a child. And I decided to spend the rest of my life in the classroom. But I really got into it and went with it. To one of my missions is to be a better teacher than my bad teachers. And that just,
Mm.
people always think that's really a weird statement, but I sat in school and I always loved school. I liked it. And I was just like, you don't need to be this hard. You don't need to be this hard line. You don't need to be this serious. Like, have fun with this. Like, don't you love your topic? Don't you love your subject? I like listening to you here and there when you're in a good mood. And so I went with that. And then I just kind of started to where a few days where I would really, when you first start teaching, it's just like anything. Your first podcast, probably you were more regimented. You didn't let it flow. So I was,
Absolutely.
and then all of a sudden I was just like, you know what, dude, forget this. This is not quite what science is to me. Science is this mixed with, a beautiful dust speck rant, whatever, what fill in the blank. And I just kind of started doing it. And then the kids would just get more and more into it. And then they would get more, their eyes would get bigger. They'd start nodding and smiling. And then towards the end of the year, I mean, I guess I sound braggy, but a kid will tell you like, "Oh man, you were like my favorite. That was my favorite class." Astronomy's easy. Astronomy's easy to get kids pumped on it. It's all woo woo. You know what I mean? I take
Hmm.
the physics out of it. We just have fun. It's a senior elective, so they'll tell me like that was my favorite class, man, and like you're the best teacher. And I'll tell you my most creative thing. I'll get to in a second, where they've said some wonderful stuff about, and the kids would then thank me for being passionate and enthusiastic, and I was like, yeah, right on. Like that's what I want, man. I'm passion, enthusiasm. And then at the same time, I was like, damn, that's kind of sad that and they're a senior in high school and it's so rare about passion and enthusiasm they feel the need to thank me, like
Hmm.
should in education, should that, I feel like that should be more commonplace. And the fact that I think if 10 kids come up to me and pretty much say the same thing, that's, I feel like there's a glitch in the educational system. So I just, all you could do is control yourself, so I just decided to pick up the torch and go with it. And then the true moment, though, when this whole kind of could I possibly one day be a science communicator came to be where, have you ever seen the Hubble Ultra Deep Field image by any
Oh
chance?
yeah.
All right. So it's hard to convey it on audio, but it's
Yeah.
this image. The funny story was I hated astronomy. I took it in college. I did not enjoy it. It was really boring. And I just didn't dig it. I was a bio kid. Chemistry and physics were cool, but there was a lot of math, so I struggled. And then this picture kept coming up in these books. I was like, all right, whatever. Another picture of stars, cool, neat, blah blah. Because it's, if you have never seen it, you should. Everyone who's listening should look it up. It's called the Hubble. Now they actually have the Hubble Ultra Deep
Hmm.
Field image. It's even more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the image, and it's these little fuzzy dots, and you know them. You're like, okay, cool. Into my mind, I thought they were stars. I'm like, all right, right on. Like they're cool, they're stars. And then this kid sent me something from Stumble Upon. The kids like you. They'll email you stuff, which is really fun. I learn something every year from my students. It's awesome, even every semester. So this thing explained what the ultra deep field image is, and it explains it based on where it comes from, to where in reality this image is 10,000 or I think it's 5,000 galaxies. So 5,000 galaxies of 200 billion plus or minus stars is
Hmm.
enough right there. And I'm like, holy crap, those are galaxies. Like, that's insane. And you read on and you read that it's pretty much the planetarium in Chicago I take the kids to, and they do this. And the Hubble Ultra Deep Field image is the amount of sky behind Abe Lincoln's eyeball on a penny held at arm's length.
Hmm.
So if you can try and picture, hold a penny out, and just the sky behind his eyeball is where the 5,000 galaxies come from. So I sat there and I was like, okay, and I was doing my thing, and I read about it, and I was about to start class, and this sounds terrible, but it blew my mind so much that I thought the rest of the sky just must have infinite amounts of galaxies. And if anyone doesn't know, it's insane. It's like 200 billion galaxies exist in this freaking universe, which is just, my God, it's just silly.
It's
So
impossible.
yeah, right. So I think I sat down. I don't think I taught much for the next 20 minutes. I was just like, holy crap. And it was so cool that the next day I shared it with the class, and I just kind of started ranting. I mean, honestly, like kind of like that, just ranting and like, "Are you kid? Blah blah, dude." Just being me. And the kids clapped at the end, like they started clapping at the end of it. I was like, whoa, that was kind of fun. And then I put it in my little scheduler for the next semester. And fast forward now, I'm doing it in a week. I can send you the YouTube video. See if I can get a better one this year. I actually want to see if I can actually get a decent production value on it. I've had it videotaped twice. So it's a 45-minute speech. I call it my big speech. It's kind of notorious now in the school. I actually opened it up to the teachers, which is, again, another creative thing. It was scary. Some of the teachers would ask me, be like, dude, what is that speech you give? Because the kids are, kind of talking about it. I'm like, well, if you want to see it, man, come on in. They let me do it in the auditorium now, which is fun because I get to use the big screen and stuff, which is cool.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, it's my little hairy, audacious goals. I'd love to give the speech to schools, like I'd love to be one of those guys that whatever you want to call it, a motivational speaker or just a speaker. So whatever, it's a 45-minute thing. It intertwines that image mixed with Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot reading, which is like, I think the most powerful piece of literature out there in my
Love
mind.
it.
And then I just go with it and I rant and rave, and I did it a couple times, and honestly, dude, the kids, like, they clapped. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they clapped. One teacher, I made a teacher cry. I don't know. Which sounds, I'm sorry if I sound braggy, but it was
No,
just
no,
like,
no.
it was like, man, maybe I can really, my goal is always to reach people, and I'm like, maybe I got the tools, dude. Maybe I got the skills to do this, and maybe I want science to be a part of people's lives, and maybe I'm a conduit for it. So then I thought, I love this. I love the podcast. I think I can speak and I can do it. I'm gifted enough with speech. I've been like, I'm the king of winging it. If you want me to tell any of my like winging it through school stories, I'll embarrass my old teachers. It was bad. I was so good at winging it. So I winged my sister's wedding speech and made a bunch of people cry. You know what I mean? Like, I just
Nice.
gift of gab is what I can do. So I just went with it. I was just like, that felt so good, and it gave me confidence that I can do it. And then I was like, maybe the ether, maybe the medium is the podcast. Mix the two worlds together and just run with it. And I guess that was my most creative thing. It happened in the last 10 years. I've been teaching for 8, so maybe 4 or 5 years ago when I started making the speech a part of my curriculum, that I get pumped on it. I just love it. It's hands down. It's kind of my empty the tank moment for school. And it's just, I give the kids every single ounce of energy I can muster, and I try and it's a performance. I don't know how else to say it. I feel like it's acting, and I take a nap when I get home because it really wears me out. It's an exhausting day. But when you have a kid come up to you and tell you that was the single best class they've ever had, and the single best moment, and that was their favorite day ever in school, you're just like, woohoo. Like, that's, thanks,
Yeah.
dude. I don't even know what to say to the kids. I love them all. I love my students. They're wonderful kids. But it's just like, you want to get, you're just like, wow, like, that's awesome. And you're welcome. Like, thank you for being you. Thank you for being creative and showing up to my class and being great. And you're welcome. And there's days where I ebb and I flow in my education, and I just feel like that's what I got to give them. That's the goal. Because if there's anything as important in this world, right, it's education. Any creative person, any artist, musician, doctor, lawyer, contractor, any spectrum of job you can think of, sooner or later, you hope their education got through to them in some way, shape, or form. And I hope I can do that for my little population at Wakanda, and maybe one day get bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, what you're saying, it is kind of a shame that not all teachers or professors are completely stoked on their subjects, and
It's
I think
hard.
that
It's tiring.
absolutely.
It's exhausting.
But I think not just the knowledge of things, but it's the excitement like
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
That's the thing that is contagious almost, and the thing that can really get other people excited too. And I had very few of those teachers. My dad was one of them, actually, for calculus.
Mine too.
Of all things. But yeah, I think that's why I'm like, I wish I could go back to school now. Like, later, like, in life, I'm finding, like, after college is already over and whatever, I'm really stoked on knowledge too. Like,
Yeah.
especially like history, and all kinds of science. Like, whether you want to talk about the stars or like within our bodies, and like I love the rants that you go on with that in your podcast. But yeah, I think it's all about the excitement, and if you're super excited about something, then you should share that with the world. So if there's something that you're thinking about doing, do it. Just do it, and don't
sure.
worry about what the judges might say. Just do it, and
Because they're gonna talk. Just prepare yourself for it. Just run with it, and that's part of being alive, though. Part of being a human is running with whatever creative experience you want to get through. If something speaks to you, yeah, make it happen. Because there's gonna be at the beginning, probably, I don't know. In my life right now, it's hard. I feel like there's probably more haters than there are lovers, but try your best just to embrace the lovers. And honestly, when I sit down to the microphone and I'm gonna do my podcast, my main mission is in get myself stoked. I don't know. It's like, if just talk about it and do it in a way, because you want to. I find myself drifting to, be more of this person because someone said they like this thing, and then it's just like, you know what, screw this, dude. I'm gonna press record. I'm gonna go, and if it's bad, I'll start over. If not, I'm gonna click submit. I don't know, like, I don't bog myself down in the whole world of it, which I'm sure I can make it better, like get an intro and an outro going, and a few things there. But at first, if I stumbled upon a word, I would like start over, and I was like, forget it. I said sapiens instead of sapiens. Like, forget it. Just move on.
Scipion.
Yeah, right. You get like some weird like my last podcast, I said Beautiful Dust Speck, and I'm like, no, not Speck, it's Specks, and keep going, and just whatever. You just play with it. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's and it makes it more natural and it makes
Hmm.
it more genuine, like what I love about what you do is it's not, it is you talking, from the heart about science, but it's not like this script that you're reading basically. So it's a gift that I don't have the gift of gab, definitely. I stumble over my words all the time, and I have a million thoughts that kind of hit my head at once, and I can only maybe get out one of them.
Yeah, man,
So I
that's good.
definitely
At least
appreciate
you got
that
a
about you.
million. That's a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
Brain's a busy place. It's cool though. I dig your podcast. I listen to a lot of the shows since I've met you, and we connected over the internet, and I like it. It's a cool angle because, dude, like one of the best things about being a human is creativity.
Mm.
Out of the entire animal kingdom, our consciousness, our brain, our we're the only creature on the planet. That's my big thing I'm pondering right now. There was actually a radio lab. The newest one's called Cellmates, and it talks about the connection between the original bacterium and the mitochondria, which, of course, and I don't want to get all evolution on you here, but it's theoretical. How did the mitochondria get into the bacteria to make a bigger and bigger multi-cell creature? Because the bigger you are, it's like a bigger car. You need more energy. So it was talking about this in terms of like, why would biology get big? Like what caused us to get from the single-celled organism that was doing fine to these amazing 37 trillion cells? And then it got me going like, there's no biological advantageous thing in nature to be creative. There's really no biological down like upside in terms of eat, sleep, and reproduce to be able to create a podcast, to be able to create art and all this. So I don't know, maybe that's like a higher power kind of gift thing, one of those
Mm-hmm.
upper levels of thought and consciousness, and just freaking flex that muscle. My other world outside from science is fitness, and that's what it's about. Is I think people get it happens in the mind too. Like they get so ingrained, forgetting that they like learning. I think school breaks them down, society breaks them down, and people are stuck in their ways of their mind, and then they're also just trapped in their bodies. Like I love when I can get through to someone about health and wellness, not to look sexy and have like the sweet six pack. Like we all want to look good with our shirt off, sure, whatever. I can't deny that, but it's just like you can start to do the things that you like to do better, and you can get outside on this cool little rock that we call Earth and go explore it, and play with your kids better and just enjoy life more. And that's what this is about. Just we're gonna be here for only a little glitch of time, just like the stars in the sky. That from the second we're born, we're on our way out, and that's always in the back of my mind a little bit. And I just wanna suck it up, get as much out of this weird little life as we can. And
Yeah.
creativity is what a conduit. What a way to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of times we talk about like flow state on the show,
Yeah.
and I've experienced it as well. And it's like it's from something else. It's like you're a satellite to something else, or
Hmm.
a antenna. I'm sorry, to something else that's like kind of using your brain and your whatever to go through you. And you're right. I think there is no like evolutionary advantage to creativity except for maybe something that we haven't quite figured out yet. And I think that's like kind of a beautiful thing.
Carl Sagan said one of his most famous quotes are, "We are the universe's way of understanding itself."
Yes. Yeah.
There's a book right here next to me called "The Varieties of the Scientific Experience," and it's his memoirs written from Anne Duran, his wife, of like his battle, whatever you want to call it, his questioning throughout theology and science, and it's a fascinating tale. And dude, yeah, but flow states are crazy. Did you read oh dang, what's the book? Did you read The Rise of Superman?
Is that the one where like basically everybody dies?
No, it's a fiction book. Oh God, what's the Coulter? Stephen Coulter? You
No,
haven't
I
read
haven't.
this? Oh my God, top of your list. You'll love it. And for me, I it's about the science of flow states told
Hmm.
through the stories of extreme sports athletes.
Right, but
And
don't they all end up dying?
Oh yeah, well, yeah, okay, yeah. A few of them do,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
McConkey and that, and for me, I can't. I'm a little biased because I was also a sponsored freestyle skier. I lived in South Lake Tahoe for a while. Like I traveled the Midwest competing for
Oh wow,
doing.
I didn't know
I wasn't that good at it compared to others, like what you see on the X Games, the jumps and the rails. But I ended up knocking my teeth out and getting concussions,
that.
and
Hmm.
so this book is amazing to me because it's my heroes. Like Shane McConkey, the guy who dies parachuting, and I mean he was one of my idols growing up. So it just talks about the science of the dopamine and norepinephrine, and oh my God, like if you haven't read that, dude, you will love it. Like oh my God, it's a good book, and it's action packed with science, and that guy's got a fascinating life. He's trying to create these flow dojos, he's calling them. Like they're learning more and more ways. Like the government's actually been doing it for years, like with snipers and other stuff. Like
Huh.
they're figuring out ways to trigger a flow state to put you into these states of consciousness or subcon whatever you want to call it, subconsciousness, where like you said, you're like a little antenna. And that's just the idea of the muse. Like do you ever I'm sure you do. You live in a creative world. The biggest question is, even the creative people laugh about how people will say, how do you become more creative? And there was a video once of Paul McCartney, and they asked him, like, they're like, Paul, how do you just create song after song that is world renowned hits? He's just like, oh, I just sit down, strum a few chords, sing a few words, and like a song comes out. Like, there's, what I mean? Like it's just a muse. Like, that dude's just
Yeah.
connected. I don't know if he
Yeah.
tapped into it or how he found that, but I think everyone has their muse if they're willing to look for it. Like, you're not Paul McCartney, but Paul McCartney probably couldn't go on a science rant. Like, you can't go on a science rant, but you're a great interviewer. You're good at doing interviews about creativity things. Like, we all got our own little world. You just got to flex the wings and figure out where that goes. And I just think people, it's just scary to figure it out along the way, and haters hate along the way. So you just shut down, and then it's like, okay, we're done, and throw in the towel almost for some of my friends, and that's always tragic. That's always such a sad thing to see, because everyone's got a little creative bug in them sooner or later.
Yeah, I think everybody does, and whether it's like you said, it might not be the traditional, like, painting or photography or writing or music. Educate, like you said, like teaching, that's creative. Like, you can like, my brother-in-law makes games for my niece. Like, he like it's a game called Will It Hat, where he has this like baby, like one of her babies that he puts, and then the game is you put something on its head and you have to see if it will balance there for 3 seconds. So
Nice.
it's called Will It Hat. Like, he's creative with all these games that he just makes up for her, like, there you can find creativity in so many different things. And like you said about the muse, I think it kind of goes with what we were talking about before. Everybody has the muse, and it's like from something. It feels like it's something outside of you, but really it is within you. And the way to like kind of tap into the muse is to like let go of like the ego, let go of what you think about the haters, if are they really gonna hate this time, and just like kind of letting go. I think that's the hardest thing to do, and also once you do let it go, it's the easiest thing to be creative afterwards.
Yeah, this will probably make it. Are you a Harry Potter fan?
I've read the first couple of them.
Oh my god, dude, come on, bro! Like, I'm envious of you right now that you can go and experience the greatest story ever written. But have you seen the movies? Yeah. So, in the fifth movie, when they're trained, was it the fifth? Dang it, I should know this. Might be the fourth. When they're training, like, underneath. Yeah, it's the fifth, where they're hiding from Umbridge and they're training from all this. And in the book, it's even written better. But Harry starts talking about every great wizard that had ever lived, started at Hogwarts, just like you and me, without these tools, and they were learning. And I'm not doing it justice to the quote, but that's life, man. Like, we all start in anything. I always see it in my yoga in the yoga world, where people are like, I can't do yoga, I'm stiff. And I mean, my God, I started CrossFit 5 years ago, got back into yoga. I could barely touch below my knees. Now I can put my nose between my shins. It's just these little ideas. I always relate it back to the singularity kind of idea, that if you start something, the universe kicks into motion, and here you go. So I think one of the challenges of life is starting your own little singularities. Like, what singularity are you going to start? What are you going to kick into motion just to see what the hell happens? Like, but if you never ignite it, you never hit that singularity, you never even start it, then what's going to happen. Like, the only known is that nothing's going to happen. The unknown is the fun stuff. That's you know what I mean? Like, that's the juice, where you kick something unknown into the ether and see what goes down. Otherwise what's going to predict. I can predict what's going to happen tomorrow if I don't do anything, and that's life. That's what I dig. That's what gets me stoked.
Absolutely, it's what gets me stoked too. And yeah, that is the scary thing, to not know what's going to happen once you jump off the cliff, or once you explode into a giant fiery ball of everything that will ever exist. But yeah, you're right.
It all is, dude. I mean, the internet's a singularity. The internet is constantly expanding and adapting every day, and there's never been a greater time to be creative, period. If you look at the grand scale of human history, the deeper I get into science, the more I enjoy learning about the scientist. And like, learning about the science behind the science is really a fascinating tale to me. It's just a story. But that's what my podcast is. It's what science is. It's just a story. It's the story of everything told through the lens of science. And as you just keep going with that, you just kick this thing out and just get it going. It's terrifying, but we don't know. We know exactly what's going to go down if we do nothing, and then to get it going is just wild. We just got to start it up.
And that's where we're going to leave you today. Hopefully this inspired you. And if it didn't, tomorrow definitely will. We talk a little bit about Alex's most astounding fact, which will blow your mind completely, as it did mine. And it will really, I promise, inspire you to just really take value in your life and how rare it is, and really get you to go to work and do your life calling. So that's how I'm going to leave you today. Hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. And Alex and I will be here for you tomorrow to give you the push again if you need it. Have a great day. I love you all, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.